Hello, guys. I am Jennifer Queen. What was promised to shake up the most processional event on the Formula One calendar was instead just another reminder of why the sport still can't quite shake its inability to innovate in exactly the place it's needed most. The requirement for a two-stop strategy for the Monaco Grand Prix was touted as the long overdue solution to decades of predictability. It was meant to push teams into more attacking tire strategies, encourage overtaking, and put pressure on drivers to take risks instead of parked up. But what they got was the very situation they didn't want. Another extended tactical chess game, where little more than the pieces' positions were changed. Again, the streets of Monte Carlo became more of a showy postcard for yachts and stars than an actual battlefield for racing. Even with the two-stop mandate, the leader four finished where the speed permitted them to. Overtaking was not possible, and strategy was made irrelevant by the plain fact that there simply isn't enough room on the track. The iconic track, once the crown jewel of the schedule, now seems like something of a vintage relic, more prestige than performance. When you see a McLaren, Ferrari, and Red Bull go nose to tail for more than 70 laps without one spot changed on merit, it puts the sport in an awkward position. Is Monaco too far gone to be saved? Lando Norris won, a career highlight, and in the process, shaved Oscar Piastri's championship advantage down to 3 points. Between the two McLarens, Charles Leclerc showed another good but unfruitful effort on home ground. Max Verstappen took fourth, after Red Bull tried to create some controversy by holding off until the penultimate lap to bring him in for his final stop, a last-ditch effort at causing some uproar that never materialized. But the non-racing wasn't through lack of trying. The issue wasn't the drivers, it was physical impossibility of accomplishing anything of value on a circuit long surpassed by the dimensions and velocity of contemporary Formula One machinery. Norris, Leclerc, Piastri, Verstappen. Everyone was trapped, captives of the circuit's tight dimensions and high threat of mere overtake attempt. With consequential revisions in store, Monaco will continue to be a sluggish procession with championship points. Martin Brundle got it spot on. The ex-F1 driver, now Sky Sports F1 pundit, stated, "I don't like these rules. I'm not enjoying it. I don't want to see drivers down the entire grid playing a game. This is his excellence, the pinnacle of motorsport, and I do not wish to see so many drivers dawdling." Adding to the frustration was the way the excitement had to be engineered, largely constructed from drama in the midfield. Team strategy further down the field became the only storytelling to care about, not for brilliance, but for how overtly they manipulated the essence of racing. Racing Bulls and Williams in particular twisted the regulations into tools of manipulation. Liam Lawson masterfully held up the field with the kind of deliberate precision you'd expect from a veteran, allowing his teammate Isaac Hadjar to pit early and secure a career-best sixth-place finish. Mercedes, mired in the controversy, had no choice but to witness George Russell and newcomer Kimi Antonelli get swept up into a ridiculous episode that culminated in Russell taking a penalty instead of surrendering track position. Red Bull's strategy with Verstappen, to hope for a late safety car or red flag by taking his stint to the limit, was a telling indicator of how desperate they are to do anything to disrupt the order. But even Verstappen, who is normally a master with a sliver of clean air, was reduced to gazing at the rear wing of Piastri for much of the race and could not make a single pass. When he actually pitted, the first four drivers jostled back to where they began. Leclerc attempted to push on, but the physics of the track simply refused him any hope. Even Hamilton, relegated to fifth place on his own, spent the day driving what seemed to be a solo time trial, free from challenge or opportunity. Further down the field, though, pandemonium reigned. Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon choreographed their pit plans to perfection, creating artificial gaps in slow sectors. Antonelli and Russell utilized the runoff of chicane as an escape route, and when instructed to return the position, Russell refused point blank, opting for a drive-through penalty instead, considering it the lesser evil. It was racing by loophole, a jarring look at how subtly the rules can be twisted once desperation takes hold. The Monaco Grand Prix, one time the crown jewel of Formula One, again revealed the sport's reluctance to flex its rules for the needs of contemporary racing. Fernando Alonso's retirement encapsulated the frustration that ran through the paddock, his Aston Martin with smoke in the rear, his race cut short by engine problems before he even got to race. A driver of international class denied his chance through circumstances that were beyond his control. And even before that, the race kicked off rather anticlimactically. Gabriel Bortoleto touched the wall at Portier, calling for a virtual safety car. A handful of drivers, Yuki Tsunoda, Pierre Gasly, and Ollie Behrman, went early into the pits trying to steal a strategic advantage, but none of them worked. Gasly's ambitious drive over Tsunoda ended in contact, destroying Alpine's hopes. Tsunoda continued on, but that was that. Once more, the early bets on nothing paid off as the window for the VSC shut before anyone could take advantage. Amidst the mayhem, amidst the headlines, nothing changed after all. The podium wasn't won by racing, it was won by pit stop timing, tire management, and traffic management. Verstappen's second pit stop, just before the last few laps, wasn't a bid to close up. It was a courtesy. Red Bull knew forward progress was out of the question. They pitted him just in case. There was no actual fight left, just damage limitation. If there was one silver lining, it was Lando Norris, serene, cool, undeterred. He absorbed the fleeting pressure from Leclerc, reacted when required, and drove the race from the front with aplomb. His victory was justly deserved. But even his victory couldn't shake off the specter hanging over the circuit. Formula One cannot keep propagating Monaco as the very definition of motorsport when the actual racing dictates otherwise. At some point, the sport has to make a decision. Either invest in revolutionary change, smaller vehicles, circuit remapping, or indeed alternative configuration, or have the guts to acknowledge that nostalgia is not an excuse for stagnation. Because if this race was anything to go by, only structural revolution will resurrect Monaco. And the stakes extend beyond the race itself. Norris's victory has unsettled the championship. What was appearing to be a dream beginning for Piastri is now a slim lead, with Norris hot on his heels and Verstappen close behind. There's building tension within McLaren and an amped-up pursuit from Red Bull. But even that intriguing subplot did not feel adequately rewarded by a race that seemed to do everything possible to stave off genuine drama. What was most noticeable from pre-race analysis was Ted Kravitz and Bernie Buscombe calling for a 4-second pace difference to pass in Monaco. That number would have been valid in the older days, but it doesn't apply anymore. During this race, we witnessed cars posting clean 1:14 seconds in free running, held up behind competitors lapping 5 seconds behind them, unable to attempt a move. That's not a margin, that's a canyon. And yet, nothing transpired. No moves, no pressure, only formation driving. The two-stop requirement rule might have worked. There was good intention behind it, but teams found ways to exploit it immediately. Coordinated pace racing, fake gaps, planned roadblocks. It all leaves you thinking, should the FIA impose a minimum lap time so as not to encourage such cynical exploitation? And then there's the track. Altering Monaco seems nigh on impossible. There are suggestions to remove the Nouvelle chicane and run a longer straight. Perhaps add a pierside chicane lower down to allow for a passing area. Others have considered different layouts prior to Portier, which would rejoin and leave the door open to overtaking. Any such plan crashes against the same hurdle: tradition, safety, and geography. The issue isn't new, but it's never been this bad. The Monaco Grand Prix is still a spectacle, but not a sport anymore. What you saw over the weekend was a pageant masquerading as competition. The rules, the track, the cars, they're all at odds with each other now. And until they're put into perspective, no history, no luxury, no champagne-soaked reminiscing will compensate for the fact this isn't what Formula One is supposed to be. What follows is anybody's guess. But if this race was a lesson in anything, it's that change has to happen, and it has to be genuine. Because currently, the only thing behind the circuit is old-fashioned as the notion that things will self-improve.